untreated heartburn or acid reflux can lead to cancer, which is pretty crazy. If you want a way to force your body to permanently stop acid reflux and heartburn in 48 hours, click the link in the description below. For now, let's get to today's question.
The question: how can I wean myself off of Prevacid without the terrible effects of rebound acid reflux? Answer by Leanne Heisey. You're referring to the 2016 JAMA paper Proton Pump Inhibitor Use and the Risk of Chronic Kidney Disease? The difference is a lot smaller than it seemed if one only looked at the abstract of the paper. The 10-year absolute risk for CKD was 15.6% in baseline PPI users versus 13.9% if they had not taken PPIs. Absolute risk difference, 1.7%. If stopping your proton pump inhibitor causes you to have much acid reflux, you could try other measures to counter reflux like taking antacids, Maalox, Tums, etc. H2 blockers like OTC ranitidine equals Santac in a high dose of twice daily 300 mg omeprazole versus high dose ranitidine in mild gastroesophageal reflux disease, short and long-term treatment. The Dutch Reflux Study Group: lifestyle adjustments like not smoking, avoiding drugs like theophylline, avoiding fatty food, too much food at a time, not eating 2 hours before bedtime, and for some elevating the head part of your bed are useful adjuncts. Using wedge put under the mattress, or but not. This is the text from a video broadcast on Medscape. Login on the matter. The study summary. Hello. I'm Dr. David Johnson, Professor of Medicine and Chief of Gastroenterology at Eastern Virginia Medical School in Norfolk, Virginia. Proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, are very commonly used. Recent news suggests that chronic renal insufficiency may develop in patients who are taking PPIs. Is it real? A provocative study, 1, was recently published in JAMA Internal Medicine, looking at a cohort of 10,482 participants in the atherosclerosis risk in communities, ARIC, study. They did a validation component analysis in the Geisinger Health System, which is a central Pennsylvania health system, looking at approximately 250,000 patients. They were trying to look at exposure over time to a variety of incident risks and what happened to those patients. One of the things that they looked at was the use of PPIs. The patients were asked to bring all of their prescription medications. Recognize that this analysis included times from 2006 onward, when we had a lot of over-the-counter medications that could certainly account for renal disease. When we look at the take-home message from this study, it suggests that the hazard ratio was around 1.45 for patients taking PPIs who developed incident renal disease. This seemed to co-adjust across a variety of risk factors. They even did an independent analysis against patients who were taking an H2 receptor antagonist, and it was still suggested that the PPI had incident harm. A closer look. Let's take a closer look at this study, because when you start to look at incident risks across a large population and you co-adjust for a number of variables, there may be many reasons why this patient population may need more subject risks. To start with, the PPI group had a lower glomerular filtration rate right from the start. The p-value was less than 0.001. They also had a higher BMI after co-adjusting for other diseases that are associated with increased BMI. Again, the p-value in the higher-risk patients with PPI exposure was less than 0.001. Now let's look at things like coincident diseases that are associated with renal disease, like hypertension, p less than 0.001, cardiovascular disease, p equals 0.003. and concomitant medications, which really caught my eye. Stratified against PPI use, they were all at higher exposures to things like antihypertensives, diuretics, aspirin, and statins. These are all high-risk disease states that are associated with renal disease. The p-value in the PPI group for higher exposure was less than 0.001 across all of the medications that I just listed. So, what do we do with this information? I think that observational cohort studies are a very good way to look at real-world community practice, but again, we are not able to stratify very well across multiple risk factors, and you have a relatively small ratio of harm. We have to question whether it is real. We have certainly seen allegations of harm across PPIs and cardiovascular disease, like community-acquired pneumonia, clopidogrel issues, and issues related to bone density and fractures. Most experts have dismissed these, at least as they relate to real risk when you stratify across the incident risks that would otherwise cause harm. I put this study in the same perspective with important takeaways. I think there are two valuable things for us to take away from this study. 1, it's a good opportunity to talk with your patients and, if they ask the question, say, I've looked at this. I don't think it's real. It doesn't change what we do in our practice. Ask yourself if they really need the medicine. If you take the medicine away, it takes the exposure risk away. So, if they don't need the medicine, they shouldn't take it. If they do need it, you can reassure them to take it. They do need to be monitored regularly. The second point for us as care providers is to not get into the lull of routine refills. This happens very easily in the PPI world. Patients seem to just think that they need to take it, but perhaps they don't. In our practice, we don't routinely refill a medication if a patient has not been seen in more than a year. With electronic refills, it becomes easy to just check the box, but check when you last saw the patient. There are some idiosyncratic reactions that occur with many medicines. For example, interstitial nephritis is a real idiosyncratic reaction, albeit incredibly rare with PPIs. I think it's reasonable to see these people once a year if you're prescribing these medicines, and again, ask yourself if they really need them. I don't think the renal issue is a significant one when co-adjusted for all of the multiple risks, but it's a healthy opportunity to engage your patient. Hopefully this puts things into perspective for when you get questions or when you hear about this study. I'm Dr. David Johnson. Thanks again for listening. So essentially those taking proton pump inhibitors had more other conditions e.g. worse kidney function, high blood pressure etc. that could negatively impact their renal function. Answer by Chris Robinson. You don't say why you want to come off Prevacid, lansoprazole. Why are you on them in the first place? Do you get them on prescription or are you self-medicating? Lansoprazole is a proton pump inhibitor, a very powerful acid-suppressing medication whose use should be monitored by a doctor if taken for more than a few weeks. It must be taken correctly as low as possible dose for shortest possible time, but for some people this means for life. There are scare stories about the drug which are blown out of proportion. They should be taken daily preemptively. The best time to take them is half an hour before breakfast. If taken incorrectly, eat too much, they can induce a condition called hypochlorhydria when insufficient stomach acid E's essential minerals may not be leached sufficiently from foods, e.g. calcium, with risks of osteoporosis, iron, with risks of anemia and magnesium, and protection against harmful bacteria, e.g. C. difficile, may be reduced. Research has shown this condition is more prevalent in self-medicators. There have also been papers, misreported in the media, linking PPIs with heart disease, kidney disease and dementia. However, these studies showed a correlation not a causation. They showed if patients who have heart problems, kidney problems or dementia, more take PPIs than patients without those problems. But they're not shown to be the cause of those problems. Frequent acid reflux can cause permanent damage to the esophagus. Barrett's esophagus is a condition whereby the normal squamous cells are replaced by columnar cells to protect the body against digesting itself. Barrett's esophagus, down with acid. For patients who develop Barrett's, PPIs for life may be necessary. Barrett's has the ability to progress to cancer and PPIs have been shown to probably have a chemoprotective effect. Acid suppressive medications and risk of esophageal adenocarcinoma in patients with Barrett's esophagus. A systematic review and meta-analysis http://www.ncb. NLM. NIH. gov/pmc/. So do think carefully and discuss with your doctor if you wish to stop taking them. If you are taking them unnecessarily, reduce to half dose daily for a week, then that half dose every other day for a week before stopping them, and replace them with a histamine H2 receptor antagonist, H2 blocker, like ranitidine. Medication, down with acid. Answer by Janet McKenzie. How can I wean myself off of Prevacid without the terrible effects of rebound acid reflux? Due to the new study that suggests that PPIs are linked with kidney failure, I'd like to quit taking them, as I've been doing every day for the past 7 years. As suggested by Paul Wilson, you can use medications such as cimetidine, ranitidine and famotidine, depending on where you live. These may be available without a prescription. You can also use a natural product such as DGL tablets, available from health food stores. The problem with this approach is that it treats a symptom, not the cause of the symptom, and anything you take daily to suppress acid will have long-term consequences for your health because low acid levels interfere with the absorption of vitamin B12 and minerals such as calcium, magnesium, Iron and zinc deficiencies in these nutrients can contribute to the development of many serious conditions, including osteoporosis, anemia, depression, blood sugar problems and hypertension. I strongly encourage you to determine the underlying cause of your reflux and to treat that so you can discontinue acid suppressants as soon as possible.